Kate, why don't you start with the roll?
Certainly. Mr. Stefanko.
Here.
Mr. Sokol.
Present.
Mr. Leary.
Present.
Ms. DeMarkey.
I'm here.
Mr. Krasansky.
Here.
Mr. Zarofsky.
I'm here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum of the board.
Great. So welcome everyone to the Thursday, March 10th EFC meeting of the Board of Directors. It's 11:33. First item of business would be approval of the draft minutes from the February 10 board meeting. Only abstentions we have, I think, were Francis and Charlie were not here that day. But could I get a motion in a second on the minutes, please?
Chairman, I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Thanks, Vita.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Any discussion? Great. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Unanimous. We also need to approve the draft minutes from the special meeting on February 14th. The only abstention there will be Francis. Could I get a motion in a second on those minutes, please?
I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, James. Thank you, Charlie, on the second. Any discussion? Great. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Report of the chair. Other than looking outside my window and seeing how close we are to spring, the only other thing is next board meeting, we're going to potentially make a try at being in person. Pending the current law expires on March 16th. It may be extended, so we can. Kate will let us all know depending on the outcome of that. But at a minimum, I will be in person. And if anyone else would like to, I think that'll be an option for folks. I'm happy to discuss further your thoughts, but that's depending on the outcome of the extension. That's the plan. Any discussion on that? All right. So, okay, just keep us posted, and we will plan accordingly.
Will do.
Great. Madam President, what do you have for us today?
Just a few things. I wanted to let the directors know that we have launched the Clean Water SRF Watershed Needs Survey. We did that on March 1st. We last did it in 2012, where we identified a $31 billion in need for clean water infrastructure. It's a year-long initiative. Like I said, we started at March 1st when EPA did it. And it's a huge outreach effort. We have inserted flyers in the debt service bills that have gone out since then. We have a website which you can link to. All employees on external emails have a signature that mentions the needs survey and asks that you you submit your needs, and there's a link so that you can get right to EFC's website. And when I sent out an email recently this week, and that signature is on there if anybody wants to see the website. We've done social media. We've done e-blasts to 10,000 or folks that are on the email, our e-blast, as well as all legislators, state legislators, and about 6,000 municipalities and other eligible participants. So we really want to get as much need documented as we can to make sure that we continue to have the highest level of financing that we can for clean water needs. So we also have done a number of presentations at events, NICOM, Association of Towns, such as that. And we always bring up the needs survey and how important it is for municipalities to participate. So we're encouraging, when folks talk to people on the phones as well, that they encourage the municipalities participate. So it's an all-out effort, and we hope to get a good response. Drinking water, if you want to say anything, Dave, about the drinking water need survey, theirs is done a little bit differently, and they do theirs on a more regular basis. Like I said, we haven't done ours since 2012. Dave?
Yeah, so ours is done every 4 years. Because of COVID, the current one got extended a little bit. So we did the last one in 2015. So the current one that I believe they're calling 2021 is just about finishing up as far as our work on it. We've got all our projects submitted, so we're in the stage now where EPA's contractor is reviewing the projects for acceptance, and then we follow up as needed to provide more documentation or whatever they may need if they have concerns about any projects. But so we're kind of in waiting mode for that right now.
Thanks, Dave. So drinking water has been on a more regular schedule. 2012, it's been 10 years for clean water. So we really want to make a big push on that side. If you have any questions or want to see the flyer, feel free to reach out. The number two, I just wanted to mention that with current events, thought it would be a good idea if Willen just gave you a brief.
This meeting is being recorded.
Cybersecurity situation is.
Thanks, Maureen. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So, cybersecurity, it's an enterprise level risk. And as you may know, it remains a top global concern for all businesses and government entities, and it's a top priority for the state. Recently, the governor announced the creation of the Joint Security Operations Center as part of its the state's $62 million investment in cybersecurity infrastructure. The Operations Center is basically a collaboration between federal, state, and local governments and utilities to provide improved coordination on threat intelligence and incident response. The federal government recognizes that water infrastructure industry specifically, like other critical infrastructure, can be a target of cybersecurity threats and hazards. And it works closely with the industry to ensure awareness of ongoing threats and that adequate protections are in place against cyber attacks. This year, the EPA, they announced a cybersecurity initiative and action plan for the water and wastewater sector to help protect water systems from cyber attacks. And earlier this week, the Office of Management and Budget issued a statement about the National Institute of Standards and Technology, also known as NIST, their guidance on a secure software development framework, which was developed in response to the president's executive order last year on improving the nation's cybersecurity. This year, EFC, we will continue to assess the nature of risks to technology and information security and adjust resources and practices to better respond to potential cyber threats. The first stage in this process is to evaluate our technology and systems so that we can efficiently harden both physical and cyber assets and related infrastructure. Our main goal is to minimize potential adverse impacts to our operations and information. We recently started the first step in this process, which is to conduct a full inventory of soft and hard technology. Also in process is our evaluation of our cybersecurity maturity across critical areas. We are also committed to improving best practices to help assess potential threats and mitigate risks. We'll routinely check the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA's, tips on safe and secure use of technology, and we'll also check for updates that are posted on EPA cybersecurity best practices for water sector. They have a webpage on that, which will help inform the staff on secure use of technology. And that's basically a brief update, to date. We'll continue to keep you posted on any significant developments on this topic.
Thanks, Wellen. Any questions, Ida?
Yeah. Thanks, Helena. I really appreciate that update.
Sure.
Do personnel undergo cybersecurity training?
Well, we do have an IT team currently. In terms of training, it is basically training that we're taking from, online. But that's basically the extent of our
You are
training.
taking online training classes on cybersecurity.
There's a
Yes.
state
Yes,
we have.
mandated course on
Right.
cybersecurity, Vita.
Yes,
folks
every
take
year.
Yeah.
And then we send
I
out,
just wanted to-
reminders.
Yeah, I just wanted to concur that that was still in play. And then secondly, what is EFC's role in the new Joint Security Operations Center? Are you part of that team in some way?
We're not directly, but we are keeping posted on any sort of developments that are coming from that, and we certainly are still part of whatever the state is doing in terms of IT security. But we're not part of it, as in we're not there. And they're located down, I believe, in Brooklyn. Obviously, everything's virtual as well, but we are keeping posted on any developments and news that they have.
And then I'm sure you know this, but as you review your best practices, obviously revolving around the transfer of money and what goes into emails and what doesn't go into emails. And now what requires phone calls of information versus, I know there are a lot of changes in those standards. That's something you can just say, yes, we're addressing.
Yes, we are addressing that. We're looking into all the, the requirements, the guidelines, some of the tips that are posted on CISA as well about that. And from the state,
this is right.
New York
and this
State
is
has
a new effort. We've been, looking at this.
Yeah.
It's just, again, this current events have reminded us that we need to be diligent in what we do and take a hard look.
I know you are, and I just wanted to confirm it out loud. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Vita. I just wanted to remind everybody that we'll have Carrie, who I see up in the left-hand corner, but she'll be doing the presentation that we're going to do last month under new business, the presentation on asset management. And she does a great presentation, so that should be a very good presentation. And then Mike will give us, we did get some guidance from EPA, implementation guidance on the bipartisan infrastructure law. So Mike will give you the current state of affairs on that.
Thanks, Maureen. Good morning, everybody. As Maureen said, EPA did issue some final implementation guidance on March 8th. So 2 days ago, we've had a little bit of time to digest it. As we talked about earlier, we had engaged with EPA since December on different subject matter areas on a biweekly basis. They were very helpful. The guidance overall, I think the impression from other states and folks internally is that there really was no surprises. The EPA made sure to provide maximum flexibility to states in operating their programs. One of the main focuses of the act is to increase investment in disadvantaged and hardship communities. In that vein, EPA is allowing the states to determine that eligibility. So DOH and EFC have the criteria for determining. So we're working through all the specifics. Immediately going forward, we're going to be interacting with EPA Region 2 to address any questions we may have as far as rolling this out. That's going to begin, I think, next week. We're still setting that up, but just high level funding levels for this year under the Infrastructure Act. Our Clean Water Base program is set to receive just over $198 million. If you recall, I think we covered this in a prior meeting. The state match on that for the first 2 years is down to 10%. It ramps back up to 20% in the succeeding 3 years. That pot of money has a requirement for 49% of additional subsidy, which is our principal forgiveness or our grants. And that is to be directed at the hardship communities. The drinking water base allocation is just over $73 million. Again, the state match is cut in half for the first 2 years. That has 49% disadvantage of the monies for principal forgiveness or grants to disadvantaged communities. The next pot of money, which is a new pot from the federal level, is the Clean Water Emerging Contaminants pot of money. Just over $10 million will be coming to the state. There is no state match on that, and that is to be given out 100% as principal forgiveness and grants. Drinking water has a larger pot for emerging contaminants, nearly $31 million. Again, no state match on that allocation. Again, 100% additional subsidy there, which 25% has to go to disadvantaged communities with populations serving less than 25,000 users. And then the last pot is the drinking water lead service line dollars. That's $115 million for this year. Again, a $0 state match on that. 49% of those dollars have to be directed to disadvantaged communities. So the other issues that we've identified with EPA is the priority on domestic manufacturing. That's the Build America, Buy America. That guidance is not yet final because that'll be coming out of federal OMB because it covers all the money provided under the Infrastructure Act, the transportation money, as well as the environment money. So our next steps, immediately, we're going to be talking with the region. As I said, we're going to be waiting on the additional guidance on the Build America, Buy America component, which we expect within the next 2 months. I think the act mandated that guidance be out by the middle of May. So stay tuned on that. That's going to have a pretty big impact on how we can fund projects, whether there's any look back period as to projects that have already been developed, similar to ERA. So we're waiting on that. We'll be able to, on our normal timeline, develop our 2023 IUP and submit our CAP grant applications in connection with that. So we expect, realistically, and I think this is what EPA has said to the states, that this is really a program rollout for federal fiscal year of 2023 based upon the way the guidance will be coming out and allowing states to really build out their programs. So we expect to keep the board up to date as we learn more. Like I said, the Build America, Buy America will probably be a discussion we'll have in May. But we can keep you up to date next month based on our discussions with EPA Region 2 and any other stakeholders. There's additional trainings that are on the calendar. So we're focused on this and trying to digest as much as we can.
Could I just ask, Mike, just interested in the internal process just on, pick one or two of these, just, is it the same, are each of these separate and distinct? Does EPA sign off, or do you just consult with them? Just give me a sense of what the process internal is.
How it's gonna roll out is they're actually gonna be separate cap grants for each. EPA has indicated that. As far as developing our IUP, we can roll these programs out in one IUP. EPA's made it clear that you've got to distinguish among the pots of money and the requirements associated with each. So from the clean water side, our plan is to issue one IUP this year with those pots of money specifically identified and lists associated with each. And we will expect to use on a particular project one or more funding streams to fund it. And EPA has said that that's permissible as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, but drinking water intends to do the same thing, have one IUP for all their pots of money. And given the way the guidance is rolling out and when EPA presumes that, that they'll be ready, it will be on the same schedule as we normally would be on the IUP, and getting that out by October 1st. So getting
That's the intention. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike or Dave?
So just confirming that's our intention to roll out the IEP, similar to what Mike said for clean water.
Does that answer your question, Charlie? I wasn't exactly sure what you were asking.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
That's right on the money. Thanks.
So, stay tuned. I think we'll be talking about this probably every month, and we look forward to it. We'll keep you guys up to date as we hear more.
Thanks, Mike. And that's it.
Thanks. That's excellent. Okay. There were no committees this month. Next month, audit will be reconvening. There's no unfinished business, so we can move right into the resolutions. Kate, why don't you get us started?
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation authorizing the president of the corporation or the president's designee to enter into a contract with Blackbaud Inc. for accounting software.
I have a motion and a second, please.
I can make a motion to move that forward.
Thanks, Roger.
I'll second.
Thank you, Vita. Maureen McGrath will be the presenter on this one.
Hi, everyone. Today we're seeking board approval to enter into a 3-year contract with Blackbaud Inc. to upgrade our accounting software. We've used a version of Blackbaud since 2015, at least, using their Financial Edge 7 product. That's a commercial off-the-shelf product that has, your basic general accounting capabilities. And now Blackbaud has a compatible, upgraded cloud-based accounting system. It's called Financial Edge NXT, and it has significantly more functionality for our accounting staff. And we can also use it cross-divisionally due to its increased capabilities. So that'll be great for us. This is a single source procurement based on both our past experience and knowledge of the product and Blackbaud's knowledge of our database and software requirements, as well as its ease of data conversion. It'll save a significant amount of time and resources to us because data migration can be performed using existing database information. Board approval is required because it is a 3-year contract. And the total cost for 3 years will be a little less than $71,000. And that includes data conversion, implementation, training, and web hosting. Albert can speak to the product itself. He's here up there. And if you have any questions on the procurement, I can answer those as well.
Maureen, any questions for Maureen?
So really, it's an upgrade of some of the services that they're providing because we already have them integrated and being used. So you have experience with it, and they've just expanded their offerings, and it matches up with our needs. So it's really more of an expansion of services, yeah?
Yeah, it's actually pretty great, and Albert can speak to this too. I don't know incidentally that the financial edge package we have now, it's great for what they use it for, but it doesn't really read well with our existing systems. So I know that Albert and our IT people were pretty excited to have this new opportunity with the cloud-based functionality, because now we'll have the ability to talk to the other divisions and other functions a little easier. And Albert can speak to that. I know he's pretty excited about it.
But when you get the IT department excited, it's
I
got,
know, right?
Great, anything further?
If I just ask, is it on state contract or other state agencies, authorities? Do they use it? Is there any bulk purchase? I guess I'm just wondering if we can benefit from anybody else in the state of New York using the same product.
It is on state contract, but I'm not sure what other agencies or authorities use it.
Okay,
It looks like Albert is speaking. I don't know if he knows he's on mute.
Albert, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
double muted. The dreaded double mute.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so Blackbaud specializes in nonprofits. So one of the big things that they have is a grant module. So this will allow us to really track the grants that are coming in and that are going out in a way that we've been doing manually. And with the expansive offerings in state grants, as well as the incoming addition of the federal grants, that'll be a big benefit. I think the other big benefit is that it'll allow us to move the budget financial plan from being a manual process into an automated process that coordinates actually with our accounting software instead of having to pull data out manually and extrapolate from it.
The one question that just comes up to me is, and perhaps is linked to the conversation about cybersecurity earlier. Any issues, concerns, thoughts, precautions being taken here in light of this?
I actually wanted to check with my IT staff right before this meeting for that particular reason. And they have assured me they've taken a number of steps with Blackbaud, including reviewing their cloud operations security data sheet, their compliance overview, cybersecurity overview, incident management and response, their white papers, their global infrastructure papers, and the most recent dated January 2022 Global Infrastructure Bridge Letter. And so our IT staff is very confident with this company and this product.
that's good to know. Thank you. Yeah, good question.
Great. There's nothing further. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, unanimous, I think. Resolution number 2, Kate.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation amending the prior authorization for financial assistance to be provided by the corporation to certain recipients in connection with the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund.
Okay, could I have a motion and a second, please?
I can make the initial motion.
Thanks, Roger.
I can second.
I think that was James. Can't see. Brian McAvoy will be the presenter.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. This ID number has 2 amendment requests. The first involves the Village of Sydney. It's in Delaware County. The project involves improvements to water source quality by developing new wells and providing the existing 2 wells with a treatment system. The project also involves adding additional meters, so now that the whole system will be metered. We're requesting an extension of the financing maturity date from April 6, 2022 to April 6, 2025. The reason why we're asking for this extension is this involved FEMA disaster relief funds. So that involved a NEPA review, and it was determined there was widespread potential for archaeological impact, and the resulting investigation significantly delayed construction. We're also obtaining easements that contributed to the delays. The second involves the village of Waterloo. It's in Seneca County, and this involves the building expansion, the addition of tri-media pressure filtration, DE filtration, and UV and hydrogen peroxide disinfection upgrades, and other improvements within the village's treatment plant. We're asking for a funding increase of $6,613,595 in STIF proceeds, interest-free proceeds, and an extension of the financing maturity date from April 11, 2022 to October 11, 2025. The additional funds are needed for a granular activated carbon work, which is necessary to mitigate algal blooms and PFOA contaminants. The increase is also the result of bids coming in high and COVID-related impacts. This will bring the total funding amount up to $12,713,595. Any questions?
So in part, the cost increases because we're changing the treatment system to include these emerging contaminants, although emerging, they're here. The algal blooms and the PFOAs, yes?
That is correct.
And anything further? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Unanimous. Resolution number 3.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation making certain determinations and authorizing certain actions in connection with the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund and authorizing financial assistance payments to certain municipalities to fund eligible drinking water projects from funds appropriated for water infrastructure improvement projects.
I'll make a motion for ID number 3.
Thank you, Vita.
Second.
That was Adam. Thank you, Adam. Dave Phillips will be the presenter.
Okay, the first project is for the town of Elbridge in Onondaga County. Project is seeking short-term interest-free financing and short-term market rate financing through DWSRF. The project is for the town's portion of a joint project that's being undertaken by the town of Elbridge, the village of Elbridge, and the village of Jordan. The overall project will install approximately 51,000 feet of new water main, which will replace aged and undersized water main and also loop dead ends. It'll include 2 new storage tanks and pump stations, a new chlorine booster station, and consolidation of an existing mobile home park that has currently violations cited by the Onondaga County Health Department. So this overall joint project will address issues with variable pressures and deficient pressures, small diameter water mains, aged water mains, replacement of asbestos cement water mains, insufficient fire flows, and insufficient chlorine residuals. The next project is for the village of Elbridge. This is their share of the joint project that I just described. And they're seeking also short-term interest-free financing and a short-term market rate financing through the DWSRF. The next project is for the city of Elmira in Chemung County. They're seeking a WIA grant of $3 million along with the short-term market rate financing. This project includes replacement of 250 lead service lines and meters. It includes replacement of a 30-inch diameter transmission main, which serves the entire city and was installed over 110 years ago. It includes replacement of 2 river crossings that are over 120 years old. And also it replaces a 130-year plus old distribution main, which is the main distribution main serving the downtown core of the city. Next project is for the village of Jordan, which is in Onondaga County. they're seeking a DWSF grant of $3 million and a short-term interest-free financing. And this is the Village of Jordan share of the joint Elbridge Jordan project, which I previously described. Next project is for the town of Orleans in Jefferson County. This is for a long-term interest-free financing. This project created the town of Orleans, New York State Route 12 Water District. The work included approximately 57,000 feet of new water mains, a new pump station, a new storage tank, and connection to the town of Alexandria. The focus of this project was to serve homes that had private wells, many with elevated sodium, iron, and chlorides. And it also consolidated several existing public water systems, including 4 mobile home parks and the Thousand Island Bridge Authority Welcome Center, which itself had violations for chloride and iron. The next project is the town of Stark in Herkimer County. This is also for a long-term interest-free financing. This project included the creation of the Van Hornsville Water District, which included new wells to replace springs that had been designated as groundwater under the direct influence of surface water, or GWIDI. Included a new storage tank, and it also replaced several mains throughout the village that were 100+ years old. And finally, last project is the village of Tannersville in Greene County. This is a long-term interest-free financing. It includes upgrades to the existing water treatment plant, including the addition of new arsenic removal treatment. Includes development of new groundwater sources to address source capacity issues. Replaces aged water mains, and also includes rehabilitation of an existing storage tank to address corrosion issues. Any questions on any of those?
Great. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Unanimous. Resolution number 4, Kate.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation amending the prior authorizations for financial assistance to be provided by the corporation to certain recipients in connection with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund.
Okay, can I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Charlie.
Second that.
All right, James, thank you. Brian McAvoy again.
This project,
Brian, if you're speaking, I can't hear you.
hear me now? Okay, I apologize about that. This ID number involves 2 amendments. The first is for the city of Poughkeepsie and Dutchess County. This project involves the design and construction of improvements to the wastewater treatment and collection system and green infrastructure improvements to the Liberty Street parking lot. We're requesting modification of the project scope and an extension of the financing maturity date from April 27, 2022 to April 27, 2024. The scope was modified to cover a portion of the GIG-related Liberty Street parking lot improvements, which will also help reduce CSOs. And a time extension is needed to finish the construction of the secondary clarifiers and the administration building, HVAC projects. The second is for Sleepy Hollow Lake Sewage Company. This is in Greene County. Project involves the planning, design, and construction of sanitary pump station and wastewater treatment plant upgrades. The project was originally a market rate at $5,245,558. We're asking for a funding increase of $1,769,000 in market rate proceeds. The increase is needed because bids came in higher than expected, and this will bring the total project costs up to $7.2 million. Are there any questions on these 2?
I want to just thank you for the additional information, about the about both, but in particular, I just want to sort of point out, I sort of really asked the question. I mean, I really appreciate the sort of the look back and going back and having these improvements in the Poughkeepsie one. And I'm interested in sort of how that came about. Uh, you know, does it traditionally happen where the community and their engineers say, "Hey, wait, hold the phone. We want to do something different in midstream"? Is that usually how it happens?
Most of the time, I see that the green component is awarded in the planning and design phase. But Bill Brazell, I don't know if you might be able to assist on that question.
I believe they had a cost increase on some of the more, I won't say important, but yeah, some of the higher priority items, and they wanted to make sure that they could complete the higher priority portions of the scope. So some of the lower priority items are going to be delayed to a future financing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Anything further? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, unanimous. Resolution number 5.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation making certain determinations and authorizing certain actions in connection with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and authorizing financial assistance payments to certain municipalities to fund eligible clean water projects from funds appropriated for water infrastructure improvement projects.
Okay, have a motion and a second, please.
I'll make a motion for ID number 5.
Thanks, Rita.
I can second that.
Thank you, Roger. Bill Brazell will be presenting.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Today we have 5 clean water projects before the board for new financings. First is the Albany Municipal Water Finance Authority. This is long-term financing for $4,407,496 for work that was completed in the city of Albany. The project consisted of 5 different contracts within the Beaver Creek watershed or sewer shed within the city. Work included a dedicated storm sewer along Elberon Place to convey stormwater to Washington Park Lake. Also, stormwater from Reichman Alley was separated from the sanitary sewer and conveyed to a constructed wetland. The stormwater from Hanson Alley was separated from the sanitary sewer and conveyed to an infiltration gallery, and a stormwater reuse pump station was constructed that allows the city to reuse the collected stormwater to irrigate adjacent athletic fields. And lastly, the project includes some emergency work to repair a sinkhole at the intersection of South Lake and Elberon Place that took place in 2016. This project included an ISC grant for the Hanson Alley Infiltration Gallery and a GIGP grant for the constructed wetland. Next, we have the new short-term financing for the town of Canandaigua in Allegheny County. This project consists of installation of a new chlorine disinfection system at the wastewater treatment plant. Total project cost of $1.8 million will be funded with an $800,000 Clean Water SRF short-term interest-free hardship financing and a $1 million market rate financing. The market rate financing is pre-financing a $1 million WQIP grant from DEC. This project is expected to begin construction in June and be complete in June of 2023. Next, we have the Village of Cobleskill in Schoharie County. It's a new short-term financing and WIA grant. The village owns a 1.8 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant that is getting old and is in need of upgrades. Upgrades include replacement of equipment within the aeration basins, clarifiers, and digester. Additionally, influent pumps, sludge dewatering pumps, and the emergency generator will be replaced, and a new SCADA system is going to be installed. Within the collection system, this project will replace approximately 3,200 linear feet of clay pipe with new PVC pipe. And construction for all this work is expected to begin in May and be complete in 2023. Next, we have a long-term financing for the town of New Baltimore in Greene County, amount of $1,875,733. This is a long-term interest-free hardship financing. The project consisted of upgrades to the Mill Street Pump Station and upgrades at the wastewater treatment plant. The pump station work consisted of new pumps, controls, and a new emergency generator. The treatment plant work included a new grit removal system, influent pump station upgrade, replacement of mixers in the oxidation ditch, new secondary clarifiers, version of an old secondary clarifier to a digester, a new UV disinfection system, and various electrical, mechanical, and architectural improvements. This project also included a 2017 WIA grant and a 2012 EPG grant. All right, and then finally, we have a $20 million long-term interest-free hardship financing for the city of Ogdensburg in St. Lawrence County. This financing is part of a $43.6 million project the city is undertaking to upgrade their wastewater treatment plant. Project includes replacement of equipment throughout the wastewater treatment plant, including the headworks, grit removal, sludge pumps, clarifier equipment, anaerobic digester equipment, new dewatering system, and a new septic receiving system. Additionally, the city will be converting from chlorine gas disinfection to UV disinfection for flow rates up to 13 million gallons per day. And we'll be using chlorine for any excessive flows that they receive at the wastewater treatment plant. Are there any questions on those projects?
I don't have a question, but I really like the stormwater harvesting project. It's a good way to use
It's
water.
good thing to do.
It really is.
Great. Okay. Nothing further. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, unanimous. Our final resolution, number 6.
A resolution of the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation making certain determinations and authorizing up to $657,949,860 in connection with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, New York City Municipal Water Finance Authority projects.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, yep. Thank you, Charlie. How about a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vita and Roger. I saw the hand. Thank you as well. Bill Brazel with our final presentation.
All right, the financing under this idea is a short-term financing for the New York City Municipal Water Finance Authority for nearly $658 million. The financing includes 18 different projects at the city's wastewater treatment plants and pump stations within the city's collection system. This is a large financing, includes the 2021 and 2022 allocations for the city of New York. We did not close a short-term financing with New York City in 2021 due to the telecom issue that had been identified. Therefore, this financing is covering 2 years worth of funding for this financing. Many of the projects in this financing are still under construction, and a few of them are complete and just wrapping up, final costs. Are there any specific questions?
Okay. Is that everything, Bill, you have?
Yep.
All right. If nothing further, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. All right, that's the end of our resolutions. We do have some additional business, as Maureen mentioned earlier. Carrie Smith from DEC will be presenting on the asset management. Carrie.
Hello. Thanks, Mayor. Well, so my name is Carrie Smith, and I am actually, Mayor, can you go back one slide? Thank you. My name is Carrie Smith, and I'm a professional engineer in the Division of Water at New York State DEC. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today about the exciting work that DEC and EFC have been engaged in over the last few years. And I just wanted to say that feel free to interrupt at any time with questions. I'll try to pause for breath so you can get a question in before I start speaking again. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of just the agenda for today. The purpose of this presentation is to provide everyone with a sense of what we accomplished for the Asset Management Pilot Program. And I want to also give a preview of what our agencies are looking at for our next initiative. So if I do my job right, by the end of this presentation, you should have some basic familiarity with asset management, and you should also have an understanding of DEC and EFC's planned next steps. Next slide, please. So before I get too far into the weeds, I always like to start with just some basic terminology so that we all have a common understanding of what we're talking about. So to start with, what is asset management? Asset management is a tool that municipalities can use to manage current and plan for future infrastructure investment. It means ensuring that infrastructure that's municipally owned, whether they're funded by the municipality or the state, are being cared for the long term. Asset management as a concept is applicable to different types of infrastructure, but our focus here for both the pilot program and our next initiative are specific to wastewater, which leads me to the next definition of what is an asset. An asset is any component that's necessary for the conveyance or treatment of wastewater. This image here on the right shows an example of 3 assets for the Washington County Sewer District number 2 wastewater treatment plant. These are screw pumps. For those who are not intimately familiar with all the ins and outs of wastewater, the collection system, the sewer pipes in the ground, right, they all convey wastewater to a certain point. And a lot of times the wastewater treatment plants then need to have pumping that allows them to distribute the influent to the head of the treatment plant. So these screw pumps accomplish that purpose where they enable the passage of wastewater up to the head of the treatment plant. So the number of assets that exist within a wastewater system all depend on the extent of ownership. So for smaller municipalities, they're consequently going to have fewer infrastructure. Larger municipalities will have more infrastructure, more things to manage, and more assets in their system. Next slide, please. So when we talk about asset management programs and setting up an asset management program, they should really be able to answer these 5 questions, and then a bunch more questions will also come out of answering these questions. But it starts with understanding first, what is the inventory? What does the wastewater system own? What do they manage? And the next question gets to, who are my stakeholders and what do they expect? What are their needs? What do they want from the wastewater system? And that leads us next to understanding what assets may impact your ability to deliver on those expectations. If, for example, the wastewater treatment plant discharges to a water body that is upstream of a beach or an area that is commonly recreated on, the stakeholders in that community are going to expect that they're able to continue to do those activities. And so the assets that are related to disinfection, for example, may need to be prioritized. Next, we get into the sense of what's the life cycle cost of these assets? What strategies should be used to ensure the lowest cost service? Ideally, if you're able to proactively manage your system, your cost should be lower in the long term. And that gets us to our last point here of how do you then pay for your needs? You've identified your projects. How are you going to pay for them? Ideally, you're considering whether your ratepayers are able to sustain some of those costs, or you might also want to consider other grant opportunities to help lower the cost. Next slide, please. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read through all these bullets, but these are some of the key outcomes of asset management. The takeaway here is that asset management and asset management programs empower municipalities to make more informed investment decisions, to stay on top of operational needs, and ideally get to a point where they are ahead of problems. So this graphic here is an asset risk matrix. This is again for Washington County Sewer District number 2. This on the y-axis, we have the likelihood of failure scores, which are really the probability of something breaking. You can kind of get a sense of where your asset is in its life cycle, and you can understand and estimate what the probability is that it will break. And then on your x-axis, you have your consequence of failure scores. Assets are not all treated equally. Some are it's going to be a bigger deal if some assets fail prematurely. And so when you when you multiply these two criteria together, both the likelihood of failure and the consequence of failure, that allows you to get a sense of your overall risk associated with the asset. And a depiction like this risk matrix can be really useful to communicate needs to stakeholders and just understand visually where your projects may lie. You know, at least in my mind, when I look at this graphic, my eye is drawn to the red square because it's very bright and it indicates to me that those are assets that I may need to look further at and start planning some projects around. Next slide, please. So this is where I pause for breath. Are there any questions on just kind of, I gave you guys a really quick primer on asset management. And the next slides, I'll focus on our pilot program and next initiative. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we started our go back one slide. Thanks, Mayor. So we started our asset management pilot in 2017, and we concluded that work in spring of 2021. Our goal in having a pilot program was to learn about asset management alongside municipalities and develop guidance materials to benefit others. We wanted to have a better sense of the work and the level of effort that's needed to actually develop an asset management program because we didn't really have that expertise before we started out on this effort. We also wanted to build advocacy and support for future asset management work. So these are the 10 municipalities that participated in our pilot program. They were spread pretty well across the state. So we had we had a participant out in Long Island, it's the village of Greenport. And then we had all the way over in Western New York, that's the village of Westfield. So we had a very good group that we worked with. Next slide, please. So this is one of the outputs of our efforts. We developed, we did our inventory of all of our assets, both our vertical assets, so those would be those structures that are above ground, and we also looked at our horizontal assets, or those pipes that are in the ground. So this is an image of our asset inventory in GIS for our horizontal assets. A key component of asset management is understanding those assets that you own and the risk that's associated with them. So this graphic is from the town of Bethlehem. You can see here there are 3 different asset types on this map. We have our manholes, which are depicted by those little circles. We have our pressure pipes, which are the dashed lines. And then we have our gravity pipes, which are the solid lines. And you can get kind of just a good sense of the risk by looking at this map. We use the same convention that I showed earlier of green is low risk, yellow is medium risk, and red is higher risk. So it's, again, a useful communication tool and a way to see within your service area where your focus might need to be. Next slide, please. So in order to understand your overall cost, it's really helpful to understand the replacement costs. So this slide shows the replacement costs of the wastewater infrastructure for our 10 pilot communities. The replacement cost here, big caveat, does not include engineering, construction, planning, or permitting. It's really just how much does this asset cost if I were to buy it off the shelf? It's not like really practical to look at the overall project cost when things like things of that nature that are that big can really escalate the cost unnecessarily, not really give you a good sense of the value of the infrastructure that's actually present. So something like this is a good gauge for understanding and communicating again to the public or stakeholders how much value there is within the municipality. And it can be used again to stress the importance of proactive management of this tremendous investment. It's much more affordable to stay on top of issues than to have to completely replace the infrastructure and plan a big project. So as I mentioned earlier, the total number of assets that are within a system are really based on the size of the community. So you can see here, it's the same way with the value of the assets. The more you own, the more money it's going to be, and the bigger those numbers are going to look. So for the city of Yonkers, for example, the total value of all of their sanitary collection system was estimated at $867 million in 2017 dollars. And down at the bottom for the village of Dolgeville, you can see that we estimated $20 million in replacement costs for that asset, for those assets. Next slide, please. So climate change is a really interesting area when we consider how it might impact projects. Resiliency, as we know, is a big deal, and the expectations that are associated with infrastructure resilience are only going to increase over time. So evaluating the resilient status of wastewater infrastructure can be really valuable for municipalities so that they're aware of their problem areas and they can consider ways to mitigate their risk or incorporate climate change when they take on a capital project. So the image on the left shows FEMA floodplain mapping, the 100-year floodplain, and I drew a little box and zoomed in to where the town of Bethlehem's wastewater treatment system is. So that's the image on the right. The town of Bethlehem's treatment plant is right by a tidally influenced stream. So as they start to take on projects and look at infrastructure investment for their treatment plant, they will need to be considering sea level rise as they start doing their planning. Next slide, please. So that gets us, I guess, were there any questions on my previous slides?
Obvious question based on the last slide. Are there times when you just say, we're not going to, this has no value because it is either has been flooded 3 times in the last 10 years, or we know it's going to be flooded out. So therefore we would never replace this. So you got a 0 value with that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. You know, as the municipality kind of looks at the status of their infrastructure, and they may be able to identify some ways to reduce their risk. So they could create a berm, for example, right around the treatment plant and get an estimate for how much that might cost. They might be able to do some lower cost solutions like raising the heights of their tanks, if that's something that's doable. So they may look first at those options for what could we potentially do to salvage the situation. But, you know, there is always that question of maybe it's not worth doubling down, you know, on this area, and maybe we need to consider something different. But at least stuff like information like that empowers them, right? It gives them an ability to kind of weigh their options. Okay, so next slide, please. So this is this is my last slide. This is just talking about the state's asset management program. This program will be administered by DEC and EFC. The goal of this next program is to build off of the success of the pilot program where we had 1 engineering firm and 10 municipalities, and we're going to be looking to more develop the engineering expertise and expand the number of municipalities with asset management programs across the state. So this new program will include these 3 distinct roles, which are illustrated by that graphic. The advisor is going to be providing training to firms and ensure high quality development of asset management programs. We want to make sure that we are setting our municipalities or state up for success, and that we have well-trained firms that are able to assist municipalities as they develop and implement their asset management programs. So the firms in turn will be training municipalities, and they'll be developing the asset management programs in accordance with DEC's asset management guidance, which we released at the end of last year. And they'll be assisting with the initial asset management program implementation. And for the municipalities, while there's no monetary cost to participate in this program, they will need to provide resources such as staff, meeting rooms, and their time to support the development of their asset management programs. And then they will need to implement their asset management programs going forward and figure out, long-term, how do I continue this work and how do I use this to plan my future projects? Next slide. With that, that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Carrie. That was a good presentation. How does EFC anticipate incorporating the information that you're aggregating on the asset management into making project decisions?
I'm happy to answer that question, but I'll look at Bill first, just in case he wants to answer how EFC wants to do this.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So, the end result of an asset management program is going to be a list of projects prioritized by risk. So it should give that sense of, here are my riskiest assets. Here's the replacement costs associated with those. And these might be the ones that we should be focusing on. So at least the way that I envision this, I see that by the end, we'll have this list of capital projects that we may be able to then facilitate advancing. There may be mechanisms that we can use to go from that list to perhaps getting into a more refined planning stage.
Yeah, it should help to identify the more critical items that need replacement or upgrading.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
And then EFC always stands by to get a team with the community and talk about financing options. I just wanted to remind folks, you have seen the RFQ for the advisor. And I think we're in the last stages of choosing that advisor, and then we'll proceed from there.
I've got two questions, totally unrelated. One is like the human element, and that is, maybe this is sort of outside of your scope of this. I think it is, but I mean, I guess I'll just anecdotally, or more than that. Do you have any read on the human operators, the planners, the humans who are needed? We across this economy, we see shortages, and I'm wondering if there's a pipeline, or if we're in sort of tough shape having a workforce, out in the future who work in these places. Second question is I'm wondering if, so we see this program, and we obviously, I don't think this is maybe a self-selected audience, group of municipalities. You tell me if I'm wrong, but these are maybe sort of the more interested, the more active, the more eager to engage and to invest even. And I'm wondering if you are worried, sitting where you sit, if you're concerned that, gee, it's been a while since we heard from fill in the blank municipality. They're not part of this program. They're not coming forward. We don't know the state of their system. We don't, again, like you said, this is a great way to prioritize projects and learn where investments need to be made. And I'm wondering if you're missing some.
Those are great questions. So to your first question about the human element, it's funny because we definitely wanted to keep people at the forefront of asset management programs, because too often what ends up happening for our operators is they get saddled with needing to identify their needs and then sell their needs and locate ways to pay for their needs. And if they don't have municipal support, from high up, they may not be able to really advance their projects that they need to advance. So we did make, within our asset management guidance, we have a whole part just about talking about staffing and making sure that you form an asset management team that includes your operator, your fiscal officer, your higher up executive who will be your advocate for the program. So we do look at that element of just making sure that there are support for this program, because it takes a village, it takes a town, it takes a city. It can't just be the operator and on the operator's shoulders. To your second question about whether there's anyone that potentially we're missing, how do we know that municipality that isn't part of this program, how do we know that they're doing okay? We have been contemplating that, and this is where kind of the DEC side and the regulatory kind of side comes into things. We've been contemplating ways that we may want to look at to ensure that asset management is being widely practiced and it isn't something that only the proactive few, the ones that really see this as a valuable thing to do, are following, right? We want to see this should be, everybody should be doing this. But that being said, asset management does take a lot of work to stay on that. It's a complete change in your mindset and your perspective. You know, you're no longer waiting to see something fail before addressing it. You're trying to get ahead of it so that you never see it fail. And that's sometimes hard for us as humans to think of, you know, in the future of what do I need 10 years from now when I might not be here, I might not really care. You know, it's about trying to bring those elements together. So we're contemplating the regulatory side of how might we encourage this, while also making sure that there are financial incentives to help ferry those projects along.
Can I assume that New York City is not part of this because, again, different world, they are, you know, it's more centralized, they're on top of this, and they're, you know, sort of like, again, they're doing this for themselves. Is that accurate?
Well, New York City actually does have permit requirements in their Speedies permit for asset management. So there is already some regulatory requirements associated with that. It's very, you know, pretty high level requirement, and New York City has been proactively kind of taking on some asset management planning themselves. So you know, they have expressed some interest in what we're doing, and we do engage with them to talk, you know, to their staff to see first, what do they think of what we've done? Do they see anything that we could potentially improve upon? So we've been communicating with them actively on our asset management work. And we anticipate that they'll continue to be a partner as we advance our programs further.
Thank you. It's really, really interesting. I really appreciate you explaining this to us and all the again, the activity around this is just great to see. So thanks a ton.
And if
You're
I
so
could
welcome.
maybe just follow up, maybe this is a follow up to what Charlie was sort of asking. So obviously, as you said, you selected the participants in the pilot, and obviously you were selecting it sort of geographically. I'm assuming you also had a selection to sort of have a representation of like large and small utilities. And then with that, did you have anyone that you selected that did not want to participate in this pilot?
Ones that were maybe voluntold. We did look, we were prioritizing geographic distribution, and we also wanted to see a variety of population sizes, because your resources may sometimes be tied to how populous you are. You know, some of our participants had part-time mayors, you know, part-time municipal staff who, you know, obviously they have other stuff going on. They're not able to maybe pay as much attention as another municipality where they have all that dedicated resources. So yes, we looked at sizes. We really were looking for municipalities for our pilot. We wanted to make sure that we had municipalities that were engaged and would give us good feedback. So that was one of our ways that we screened as well. The cost of an asset management program is proportional to how big the facility is. So since our pilot program was only for $3 million, we were conscious of what that budget was and ways in which we may not be able to, you know, afford the larger municipalities. I just forgot your second question.
I was just curious.
Oh,
were
the
there any
voluntold.
selected participants that
Yes.
decided not to participate? Yeah.
Right. So I'm happy to say that all of our participants, they were all engaged throughout. Some participants that maybe were more reluctant, without naming names, we did have one participant that, you know, was had more encouragement to participate than others. And I'm happy to say that even that facility, that municipality, they were really engaged in the work, and they were really excited by the outcomes, and they have, you know, been able to use what we did, and they've been able to put it to use. Some municipalities have even used their asset management programs to advocate for more staff, specifically an asset management, you know, manager for their system, which is pretty cool. And we've seen other municipalities were able to effectively articulate that they needed to increase rates, which is always such a hard conversation to have. So having the support of the program and the results of it, they were really able to leverage that to get some of their needs addressed.
Great, thank you. Very good to hear.
Just one last thing is, I think, we did the pilot with 10, hoping to get up to 50 in this phase 2. And, it is a difficult and can be, very time consuming to do it. The benefits in the long term are definitely make it worth it. But, DEC has put up guidance, and they had guidance and revised it after the pilot. And then having up to 50 municipalities do it is to show how it can be done. And hopefully they will, spread the word that how valuable it was, and that it will again inform whether there needs to be changes to the guidance. So it will provide, again, information for making the statewide guidance better if necessary, and also get that many more municipalities across the state that have done it, and engineers that have done it, so that they can then go out across the state and help additional municipalities do it, because they've done it before and they know it can be done.
Great. That was a great presentation, Carrie. Thank you so much. Anyone have anything else? Okay. On that note, before we adjourn, our next meeting will be Thursday, April 7th, 11:30 a.m. Audit committee is at 11. I will take a motion and a second for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Roger, thank you. Charlie, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks again, Carrie. We are adjourned.